One of the great things about my job is that I get to meet new people every day, and every day someone comes in that surprises you.
Hi, Rob.
Young man.
You're ready for me.
Always.
Fantastic.
Always. How are you?
Not too bad.
Good. Take a seat.
Oh, it's so grey and miserable out there.
Fortunately, it's really bright and lovely in here.
Oh, right, as usual.
As it is now.
Yeah.
Usual?
Well, if you can transform me into...
I was going to go for kind of 27, 28.
Really?
Is that the age we should go for? I don't know. That was a good year for me.
33 and a third.
So what have you been up to?
I've just got back from Poland, of all places. Got a son who's living out there. That's where his partner's from. So it was the first time to see their new place and meet her family.
Where in Poland is it?
Gdansk. I was really impressed. Such a vibrant place. It was a very sort of modern city. Everything works, unlike sometimes around here. But,
Such a British attitude, Pete.
yeah.
Oh, that's good. I've heard nice things about it, but I've never been to Poland.
The old town there, which is beautiful, and it's certainly cheaper to have a drink out there than back home.
Now we're getting to it.
Yeah.
So you must have travelled quite a bit, though.
Been to a few strange places for work.
Where's a strange place?
I did when the British Army was out in Iraq, I did about 3 or 4 trips out to Basra, and they wouldn't allow you to go anywhere except by helicopter. It was so dangerous.
Wow.
Yeah. But at that time, locals were being offered a bribe or an incentive of about $50 to fire any kind of missile at the British garrisons. And
really?
Yeah. That was the Iranians at the time who were smuggling in bombs and mortars. I was so tired one night because it's like a 24-hour trip to get there. We were in what had been a hotel, and then in the middle of the night, this mortar shell came in, so there was this huge explosion, but I was so tired. Everybody else was kind of like jumping for cover, and I just stayed in my bed. But I think that's when I got my love for dressing up in fatigues and pretending to be, you know.
I like dressing up too, every day. Different kind of dressing up though.
Jumping out of helicopters and remembering not to stick your head up too high.
Is that where your love of journalism comes from then, or is it stuff like that?
No, I think that dated back to watching Match of the Day as
Really?
a kid. I used to watch Match of the Day and then do my own write-ups, reports.
Okay.
When I was at school, I was the least likely guy to become a journalist. I didn't properly learn to read and write until I was about 9 or 10 because of dyslexia.
Okay.
And interestingly, so many people in broadcasting have dyslexia almost.
Really?
Every second person you talk to, it's probably just a visual. You tend to compensate by being very visually aware of things. Being a lad in the 60s, you were just treated as though you were naughty, so I spent most of my school days sort of standing on a chair at the back of the classroom or being sent out to...
Always loved being the centre of attention.
Probably, yeah.
Lots of people are dyslexic and don't even realise it, a lot of times.
Because I was so slow or supposedly thick at school, I used to listen to a transistor radio, listen to the World Service. So at the age of about 5, I knew everything that was going on with American politics, President Johnson, the Vietnam War, all of these kind of issues and things like Aberfan. Like, none of the kids in my year knew any sort of current affair.
So, are you saying your dyslexia actually helped you
I think I was just interested in, I was very good at listening, so I couldn't write stuff down at the time.
Right.
But you would develop almost like a photographic memory for listening to
It comes out in another way, doesn't it? That's interesting.
But also, because I was listening to the World Service, all the other kids at school had a kind of Cockney, rural way of talking, and I'd come in sounding like some BBC guy in a suit.
At what point did you go, journalism's for me? Where was that kind of spark from?
I think once I started at my comprehensive school, all the teachers were suddenly saying to my parents, oh, he's going to go to university. My parents were saying, who are you talking to? It's the wrong guy. You're talking, because they were used to all the teachers saying he's, you know, he doesn't write, he doesn't know what's going on. And then I went off and did a Polytechnic media course in London, one of the first courses like that, which taught you how to use a viewer and had TV studios and script writing and things like that.
And were you just in it straight away, or was it something that grew, or?
Not really. I was still a very poor student, and I also didn't know anybody at all who worked in the industry, you know, newspapers, the media, and it seemed like an impossible world to get into.
Right.
So then when I finished college, I did a weird sort of, because I had a German girlfriend, I did almost a year living in Germany and actually worked as a social worker looking after a disabled guy at home, and that was kind of interesting. And then I came back and just wormed my way into local radio, selling stories and doing shifts, and just built it up until eventually I got a job in TV.
So where are we talking now? What kind of year were you going into TV?
1987 I got my job in TV.
The year I left school.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Must have been still young.
There was a big thing at the time where I was working in Brighton, and it was, I think it was the October of the Great Storm? So we were filming in Brighton, and then in those days you didn't have kind of the internet to send the pictures back. You had to get a dispatch rider or a motorcyclist to pick up the tape, but no motorcyclist was working because the winds were still too high and so many trees were across the road, so they gave me the tape. You know that scene in broadcast news where the young PA woman runs through the studio with a tape and there's all these obstacles? Well, I had to drive from Brighton to Southampton with this tape for the 1 o'clock news with all the images of the trees down and people's homes.
Wow.
Sort of almost destroyed in the high winds.
You mentioned Match of the Day, that was where your love came from. So where are we, so you've gone into news, so was sports something that you wanted to?
I did a few. I met Arsene Wenger because I'm a big Arsenal fan.
Okay.
So I did cover, for some reason, one game at Highbury. Once, years later, because I just gravitated towards hard news, because that seemed to be where the money was for me. But I was offered the chance to cover an FA Cup semi-final between Arsenal and Manchester United at the Aston Villa ground. And so I had like a backstage pass to go everywhere and got to interview Arsene Wenger, which was a big thrill at the time. But Manchester United beat Arsenal, so...
Oh, okay. You still sound a little bit bitter about that.
I was. Watching Alex Ferguson jumping up and down, being very happy.
And they say never meet your heroes, Pete. Is that true, do you think, or you...
No, Arsene Wenger was a real gentleman.
Oh, that's
so,
good.
Yeah.
That's nice when that happens.
Yeah. We also judge people through drama series, so The Crown on Netflix.
My dog's been on The Crown.
That kind of drives...
My dog is the most famous person in my family.
How you think, why was the dog on?
I've got a little black pug, her name's Mabel, and she's in series 3. She sits on Derek Jacobi's lap. And
Derek Jacobi, who was playing the Duke of Windsor.
Duke of Windsor, in series 3, so he was the later
And there was
one.
a scene where the Queen was talking about the pugs and he's saying they're very gassy.
Yes, it was my dog.
That was yours.
And he is correct. The story goes that when he passed his favourite pug, which was a black pug called Black Dynamite, my dog is the most inappropriate name ever, and then when he passed, she was sitting on his bed, and the moment he passed, she just got up and left. Like he wasn't there anymore, and they filmed that in the series, and that's actually my dog. She was getting her nails cut, and then they said, "Oh, you don't hire your dog out, do you?" And our immediate thought was,
You must have made a fortune.
I never actually saw any of the money.
Yeah.
There was a lot of changing hands between ladies, and I didn't. Yeah, and they said she rents out to TV and film, and she can't get a black pug. Right. And they need a black pug for this scene, and if she got the black pug, she's got the gig.
Isn't there a lead role for a pug in Men in Black?
That's a beige one, isn't it? They shake it and then it talks.
I think,
and so we said, yeah, and he said, well, do you hire it out? And we said, well, how much? And it was this much a day, and it was quite good. Yeah. And we went, yeah, there you go. Yeah. No questions asked.
So you're not there holding its hand?
No. So they said, we can't tell you what it is, but she's going to a stately home for a week. They took her for a day's training. Apparently she was really good, which is funny because she's not at home. And then they said, yeah, we'll have her. So she went off for a week and then came back very grumpy that she was now having to slum it back with us.
Where did they do the filming? Because it was supposed to be a French...
It was supposed to be, you're right, it was supposed to be France, but it wasn't very far away. It was like Shropshire or something like that. It wasn't,
Somewhere out in Rugby.
So then, then she came back, she said, don't tell anybody online, but it's actually for The Crown. And at the time, we'd only just finished watching series 2, and we were like, The Crown, we're massive fans of The Crown. You're joking, this is like a big deal. Amazing. And then everyone was coming in going, where did your dog go for that filming? Because I told people, I was going, nowhere, can't tell you. And then I said, and my wife said, no, you just can't say it online. I was going, it's The Crown. But she's in it quite a lot. It's on episode 8, series 3. When we watched it, we couldn't believe how much she was in it. So we always now joke that...
You'll have to do one of these with her.
She wouldn't even sit still. I can't even get a claws clipped. I have to get someone to do it, which is why she got the gig in the first place.
Do you think you could get me a picture?
Yeah. Of like a paw print on the ink.
I used to know lots of gangsters in. I remember this guy that I'd always been able to pick up the phone and he would talk to me or do an interview about stuff. And then towards the before I kind of like officially left, he suddenly said to me, well, there's no point doing telly anymore because nobody watches it. You know, all the kids are watching YouTube or Facebook. That's where people are getting their news. So he said, you know, there's nothing in it for me to do a local TV news that comes on at 6:30 every night. So I think we're almost living at a point where a lot of people never buy newspapers anymore. A lot of people don't watch the television news, or if they do pick it up, then obviously it's picking up tidbits, small bite-sized pieces on online, social media and things like that. Yeah.
So did you often have conversations with gangsters, or is that a...
Well, I got a few friends who are gangsters.
It never occurred to me until you just said it, that now it's kind of like, yeah, well, that would, of course you would have different contacts in different areas because, you know, you're a journalist. So it's kind of like...
I think for one brief moment, you go to certain pubs in Birmingham and one half of the pub would have policemen, detectives drinking, and the other half would have the sort of working criminals.
And I imagine they knew each other.
Yeah, it's a sort of halfway house, but a lot. That was at a time where policemen would talk to journalists off the record about things. You know, I had senior detectives saying to me, "Look, I can't talk to you anymore. They're monitoring my phone calls. If they find out that I'm talking to you, I could lose my job."
I mean, that was, so you're talking late 90s?
Yeah, and into the, you know...
Into the noughties.
Yeah.
I had a guy come in once who was a local newspaper guy, and he said, there is nothing like the buzz of a newsroom when a big story breaks. The buzz that goes on, this kind of vibe. He said, I've never experienced anything like it, and I don't think I ever will.
Well, I did a freelance shift, and I was in the newsroom the day the Queen died, and all these rumours that everybody knew that she was going to die that day, and there was all sorts of stuff in the background, but it was just like being there in a newsroom when kind of like the biggest story in some ways in my lifetime, you know, you knew that she was going to die. 96, people don't last forever, but it was a real moment.
Yeah. We were in here, and we were sort of getting, my wife was texting me saying, all the royal family have suddenly gone up to Balmoral.
Yeah.
The news channels have taken over all the TV and now all the news, and I was literally getting like minute by minute, and I was saying to the guys like, oh, now all the newsreaders are wearing black ties, but there's been no official announcement. Yeah. And I'm kind of driving home going, I want to be somewhere if this happens, which obviously it sounds like it's going to. And my wife, I was in the traffic and outside Quick Fit, and my wife texts me going, the Queen's passed. I goes, no, don't do it here. Don't tell me here.
Outside of Quick Fit.
Outside of Quick Fit. I'm always somewhere really inappropriate when big news happens. I was on a rowing machine when the Twin Towers was hit, and I thought it was a movie. I thought it was a movie. There was a screen in front of me, and I'm on with my mate, and I said, what movie is this? It looks quite modern. I thought it was a 70s thing. Yeah. And he said, you're an idiot. That's real.
That's another thing I really remember, because I was on a course with these Americans, and they were teaching us how to use small video cameras to do kind of like fly on the wall reporting. And I was in an edit suite with this editor putting together something that I'd shot. And then one of her friends came in, and they were all from New York. And this guy said, a plane's just gone into the Twin Tower. And it was like, oh, right, okay. And then 20 minutes later comes in and says, another plane has gone into the South Tower, or the other tower. And it was like me saying, I think we should stop doing this and actually go somewhere where we can watch what's happening.
Well, young man, I think we're good.
I think we're done. Have you remembered to do my eyebrows? The bushy eyebrows.
Well, I wasn't going to mention that, you know, because...
that's the best bit, yeah.
I had a guy once come in and he said, and I just automatically did it, and his wife, she turned up, looked at me, she went, I do that, that's my job, and got really cross, and I went, ooh, and as I did the other one, he looked up at me where she couldn't see, and he just went, thank you. Because I think she plucked them out, and he didn't like it, and he just went, thank you. I mean, he didn't stand up to her, he just told me, so I got it in the neck, but hey.
You've done a marvellous job.
I think we've took at least 15 years off, I think.
Right,
yeah.
Brilliant.
So you look about 29 now.
Yeah. Cheers.
It's been lovely to talk to you, mate. As always, there's always a different angle somewhere. Well,
I wasn't expecting to learn the secrets of the Crown.
I wasn't expecting you to talk about the Birmingham gangsters, but you know, we've had a bit of give and take, haven't we? Yeah. Much appreciated as always.
Good.
Looking good.
Yeah. Same time in 6 weeks?
I always go for perfection if I can.
Yeah.
Rarely happens, but I'll do my best.
Cheers.
You're welcome, Pete. Good to see you, mate.
And you. Take care.
Yeah, you too.
Yep.
I have a bit of an affinity with dogs and cats, partly because I look like a dog a little bit.
Is this true?
Every time, it's true. So when
I'll
dogs
never be
come
able to look at you in the same way though.